Gordon Ramsay is known for his no-nonsense approach, but these chefs from Kitchen Nightmares take things to a whole new level. First up is this owner, who is living the high life, but chose to put his staff through hell in order to make that happen for himself. Okay, so let's get started with a quaint little inn in Windsor, Vermont, owned by Robert Dane II and his partner Ari Nicky. Sounds charming, right? Wrong. Sure, from the outside, Juniper Hill looked like a dreamy 110-year-old hotel straight out of a postcard. I mean, just look at this place and tell me you don't feel the same.
Where's all this stuff from?
But wait, all you have to do is step inside and there's a whole different story waiting to unfold.
Handwritten tickets, no time on there, no proper dates, no coordination.
The poor management and kitchen chaos aside, this place was decked out with so many weird and old knickknacks that you'd think you'd stumbled into an antique store.
This looks like it could be a beautiful room. We can't tell because it's stuffed with so much clutter.
And get this, a night stay at this, museum would set you back a minimum of $350. So why were Robert and Ari drowning in debt? Well, it turns out they were living the high life while their business was sinking faster than the Titanic.
It is filled with original works of art and antiques, all museum quality.
Robert was really into treating his buddies to freebies while shorting his hardworking staff of a rightfully earned paycheck. If they were paid at all, it'd be late. And their tips? Forget about that.
You don't get paid, and when you do...
Not on time. We're supposed to get paid every 2 weeks.
It was giving off major Amy's Baking Company vibes. I mean, surely you remember the kind of nightmare she put her staff through, right?
I'm talking. I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't doing anything.
Anyway, back to Robert and Ari, the pair who just didn't care. They treated the place like their personal playground, leaving their employees high and dry in the crossfire.
And then I would have to demand to be paid back, or we weren't going to open for dinner.
And to get this, she had to beg for her own paycheck just to keep the lights on for dinner service. Talk about a hot mess. But Chef Ramsay wasn't having any of it. He rolled in to set things straight, and boy did he uncover some dirt.
So you're losing $200,000 a year.
Turns out, Juniper Hill was once a gem, but then it hit rock bottom. And the head chef immediately brought Ramsay up to speed about everything, revealing how he went from making bank to barely scraping by.
You're barely surviving.
I don't know that I'm even barely surviving.
But oh wait, there's more. The menu, well, don't even get me started on that. It was an even bigger mess somehow.
Darling, is this a prefix menu, or...?
Yeah.
Because there's no prices on here.
Yup, absolutely no prices listed, just a big fat bill waiting to punch your wallet in the gut. And the food, let's just say it wasn't winning any Michelin stars. I mean, Chef Ramsay couldn't stomach it.
Sort of washy and soapy, and $20 for that.
And the cherry on top, the rooms were putting the nightmares in Kitchen Nightmares.
What is that smell?
It smells like raw sewage.
One whiff and you'd swear you stepped into a sewer. And they had the nerve to charge $350 a night for that stench? No thank you. But the famous chef was not gonna back down, not today. And so he saved the day, at least for the moment.
They need a structure. They need a mentor. They need some support. And all they get is nitpicks.
And with that, the Juniper Hill rose from the ashes and became the Windsor Mansion Inn with glowing reviews on TripAdvisor to boot. But wait, it wasn't under Robert or Ari's direction. By the time the show aired, the pair was drowning in over $1 million of debt, owing money left, right, and center.
That is insane. It's the worst management model I've ever heard in my entire life.
Eventually, they just had to shut the place down for good, leaving behind a trail of unpaid bills and unhappy employees.
That's very sad.
Gordon is going to come into this place and say this place is f***ed.
But hey, every dark cloud has a silver lining. Kenny Lucci and his sister Brenda Bradley swooped in and bought the joint and turned it into the Windsor Mansion Inn, a true beacon of hospitality. Meanwhile, according to a Reddit post, Ari was found cooling his heels in jail somewhere in Hillsborough County, Florida.
I feel as if I'm at the end of my rope.
Yup, the dude was arrested in 2015 with his bond set at $500. Well, of course Robert bailed him out and the case was dropped, but hey, he did spend at least a week in jail. Well, I guess these two owners learned an important lesson the hard way. You better not mess with Chef Ramsay, and definitely don't forget to pay your staff. Or worse, steal from them. But guess what? They were not the only owners who got into legal trouble. What happened with this next one is even more shocking.
Get it, tough guy! Get it! Right now! Right now!
Okay, so do you remember Peter's Italian Restaurant?
Who the f*** is it? Give me the salad! What are you trying to...
Oh boy, what a wild ride that was. So this episode kicked off in Babylon, New York, where we got to meet Tina's Italian joint, oddly named after her brother Peter. Now, Peter definitely wasn't any ordinary dude.
Excuse me?
He had this whole mobster vibe going on, throwing fits left and right, but deep down, he was a passionate guy. But only when it came to himself.
I take so much pride in myself, my appearance, my car, my clothes. I take care of myself, and it shows.
Meanwhile, the kitchen was a hot mess, with low-quality gear and an overworked Chef Robert struggling to keep things afloat.
It looked like fucking camel's turd. It looks like something out of a fucking sci-fi movie.
Okay, so enter Chef Ramsay, fashionably late thanks to Peter's antics. And almost as soon as he arrived, he dove headfirst into the food, and let's just say it wasn't really a pretty sight. From rotten salads, cold crab cakes to lobster ravioli that looked like baby food, Chef Ramsay was far from impressed.
That's not even lobster, that's just like baby food inside gunk.
And do not even get me started on the drama in the kitchen. With tempers flaring and enough blame games to put even the worst Hell's Kitchen services to shame, the chaos was audible throughout the entire restaurant.
Stop now and get you a glass of orange juice.
Do I have
Look
you
at
give
me.
orange juice?
Fuck yourself.
But the famous chef was not ready to back down. He rolled up his sleeves and got to work cleaning up the kitchen and revamping the menu. With shiny new equipment and some good old-fashioned Italian dishes, things started to look up. Well, except for Peter, of course.
What's going on? What happened?
Don't conduct that in my business.
No, you're right.
Speaking of Peter, it turns out he had some serious debts and a knack for making enemies. I mean, the whole showdown on the street with the bill collector? Oh man, I would be lying if I didn't say that was epic. I've never seen anything like it before.
Come on, I'll put you in the hospital. Yeah, fucker.
But the famous chef was not here for theatrics. He sat down with Tina, who spilled the beans about Peter's antics and how she struggled to keep the place afloat.
Does Peter play a part in the financial side?
He'll take his paycheck but not come in. I come in and they'll tell me, oh, Peter took $200.
Not surprising at all. But Chef Ramsay was done. He basically laid down the law. Peter would either have to shape up or ship out. With a little tough love and a lot of elbow grease, they whipped up the restaurant into shape, and what do you know, the relaunch was a hit. The customers were incredibly happy and there was a buzzing atmosphere. But Peter's ego could not take the heat. He ended up clashing with Chef Ramsay and got kicked out of his own kitchen.
Just turn it down a bit. Just turn it off. Hey.
Oh my God, I never seen something like this.
But despite everything, the restaurant saw success, for a while at least. They even held a Family Day festival, bringing the community together and giving Chef Ramsay a rare moment of enjoyment. But the restaurant was not meant to last. Peter's shady past caught up to him, and the restaurant closed its doors in 2008.
Start working at the problem.
What's the problem?
What's the problem? You. That's where I'm starting.
Peter's brother-in-law claimed that Peter was some kind of undercover FBI agent, leading him to getting the boot from the Bonanos and being disowned by his entire family.
He's nuts, this guy.
And if that wasn't enough, his poor old dad, Yogi, had already kicked the bucket, possibly from all the stress. Seems like Yogi tried to steer Peter clear of the mafia, but hey, sometimes fate is a cruel mistress. So Peter was left jobless and reeling. But that was like ages ago, so Peter must have picked up the pieces of his life by now, right? And well, someone apparently did spot Peter looking all fit and fab in Middle Village, Queens. Talk about a tragic downfall. But this really reminds me of the arrogant owner from The Secret Garden.
It's lazy, it's dirty, and it's just bad. I mean, really crap.
Oh yeah, Michael Bardavid. The man who gave Chef Ramsay a really hard time.
I had one of the worst meals I've ever eaten.
That's a matter of opinion.
So Chef Michael, the self-proclaimed culinary virtuoso, was strutting around his restaurant like everything was spot on, but in truth, the place was just rotting.
That's how you work.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I'm talking about moldy food, dirty fridges, and even maggot-infested potatoes. But his ego wouldn't let him see the truth.
Is everything perfect? Even in your kitchen? I don't think so.
I mean, let's not forget what happened when Chef Ramsay rolled up to the scene. He was greeted by locked doors and a front entrance that looked like this.
That's locked as well. God.
Weird, I know. But that was just the beginning. Because what came next was a comically tiny loaf of bread served in a gigantic basket.
I feel sorry for that poor lonely bread roll in there.
Seriously, who does that? But wait, there's more. The menu was actually like a novel, with dishes having such long names that even if I tried saying half of them, this video would balloon to an hour long. And don't even get me started on the food.
Strawberries and shrimps.
Wait, did he just say shrimp with strawberries? What a crazy combination. It was a culinary nightmare that Chef Ramsay couldn't stop thinking about.
I've got to think about a chef's perception of food when he starts to put strawberries with fresh garlic shrimp.
And of course, there was Chef Michael's ego, which got in the way of pretty much everything. You see, despite the famous chef's honest attempts to help, Michael just couldn't take the criticism. He was too busy defending his moldy kitchen and serving up excuses faster than Chef Ramsay could say, "It's raw."
I work for Tomato Gate. Thomas Keller doesn't run a kitchen like this.
But here's the thing, Ramsay shut down the entire restaurant like it was a crime scene. I mean, that walk-in refrigerator was nothing short of one. Honestly, I thought Michael would never agree to Chef Ramsay's changes, but then he did. And before you know it, the relaunch was a hit, with record sales and satisfied customers all around. But alas, it wasn't meant to last. Despite Ramsay's efforts, Michael eventually went back to his old ways, expectedly serving up his infamous dishes and ignoring Chef Ramsay's advice.
You French pig!
You can get out.
Go on.
You can get out.
F yourself.
What Michael actually did was chase any chance at success that he had right out the door. And well, that's exactly what happened. The Secret Garden eventually closed its doors for good in 2015. And I'm sure like 4 people were upset when that happened. I mean, I really thought he'd change after this crazy altercation.
Yeah, is it? Where's your f***ing kitchen and cleaner, you lazy cunt?
Now.
But as it turns out, there was some shady stuff going on. Rumor has it that Michael might have been sliding some cash onto the table for a bunch of critics to leave positive reviews on social media. People were not shy about airing their complaints either. They said the vibe was stuck in the past, the food was meh, and Michael himself? Yeah, apparently he still had a bit of an attitude problem. Maybe more than a bit.
Now I'm wondering what I do wrong.
But wait, there's more. After selling off the Secret Garden, the place got a total makeover from Danny Margolis, who turned it into M on High Street. Suddenly, it was all the rage with 4.5 stars on Yelp and serving up some serious community vibes. As for Michael, he had put an end to his dream of owning a business and instead went back to working under others. From 2020, he seems happy from his posts, but surely his career was ruined. I mean, the kind of negative publicity that he got from the show must have rocked his world. Sometime in 2017, he was listed as a partner at Custom Pie Moorpark, but I guess the damage was already done. However, he wasn't the only one who blamed the show for his personal downfall. Here comes another owner who became meme material as soon as the episode aired.
Just like last night, he ran up to every table and said, "Hello, my name's Nino."
Yeah, Nino's Italian restaurant just has to be on the list of owners gone wrong. I mean, this episode was loaded with a ton of drama, family feuds, and of course, Chef Ramsay dropping more than his fair share of insults.
Would you not feel guilty with your mum working twice as hard as you?
So, what was the deal with Nino's exactly? Well, this family-owned joint had been around for ages, but things started to unravel when Vincenzo, the patriarch, stepped back due to some health issues. Enter Nino, the supposed heir to the throne. Instead of stepping up like he was supposed to, he was chilling in the office, watching TV like it was his job. Cue the family drama.
Why would I come here at 8 in the morning? That's a fantasy. To watch TV.
Nino was the hero of this episode, but somehow Michael managed to steal the show with his epic trash talk about his brother.
Tell people you're working, because nobody's here, so you can say whatever you're doing, right? Stretching the truth.
Oh man, this guy was seriously some comedy gold. But the tension reached a boiling point when Chef Ramsay showed up and Nino sank deep into denial.
Chef Ramsay is sounding like an ass.
Oh yeah, Nino wasn't trying to take that lying down. He tried to defend himself, but Chef Ramsay was not buying it. Cue the gum under the table moment.
It's just stuck to my jeans. No. Oh my god.
Classic Ramsay move. Anyway, let's fast forward through the chaos. Nino tried to step up and the episode ended on a relatively upbeat note. But what exactly happened next? The restaurant flipped back to its old menu, Vincenzo sadly passed away, and eventually, Nino closed its doors for good in 2016. Rest in peace, man.
You're the man that gave me 10 out of 10.
But what about the rest of the family? Michael swapped the kitchen for real estate, and Karina, the other sibling, took a dive into activism and social media biz. Inge, the matriarch, battled cancer and lockdown blues, while Nino remained a mystery man, disappearing from the public eye.
I made a bad decision. She still has a resentment about it.
Okay, so cut to 2024, and we're still in the Finding Nino era. But hey, speaking of owners who ruined their careers, here comes a couple that got booted right out of their country.
All that's happened is we have been attacked.
Attacked?
Attacked!
Don't believe me? Here comes everyone's favorite, or least favorite, Chef Ramsay's arch rivals, Sammy and Amy from the infamous Amy's Baking Company.
I'm not afraid of you.
You're afraid of the truth, not me. The sad thing is, you don't fucking know the truth.
So, if you're in for some serious drama, make sure to watch this video right here where I break down every single scene from the episode bit by bit. And trust me, it's a hell of a roller coaster. And for those of you who don't have time for the entire thing or just love hearing about all this drama, here's some quick background to what happened. So, Amy and Sammy opened Amy's Baking Company in 2007, thinking they were gonna be the next big thing. At first, things seemed sweet, but then, oh boy did it go downhill fast.
This is ridiculous. I've never seen anything like this before.
Now, Amy went full-on mama bear mode defending her joint, but instead of squashing the drama, she just made things worse.
There's no point in me saying anything to you because you just say, well, it's good like that.
So, when Chef Ramsay showed up, Amy's spot was surprisingly clean. He even gave props to Amy's homemade desserts. But as soon as lunchtime hit, the cracks started to show. You see, the main issue here was that Sammy was way too scared to tell Amy the truth. And Amy, well, she was living in La La Land, thinking her food was top-notch.
This is how we work. I work meticulously because my customers deserve it.
Wow.
Anyway, after a disastrous service that culminated with Amy firing one of her waitresses, the place was locked up tight. But the show didn't stop there, oh no. Amy and Sammy went off on their Facebook page calling everyone haters and bullies. And when folks dug into their past, let's just say it wasn't pretty.
Yes, there have been a few occasional times that he has had an incident.
Sammy had some run-ins with the law, and Amy had her own skeletons. But did they learn their lesson? Nope, they kept stirring the pot, selling t-shirts with quotes from their episode, and even firing their entire staff. It was a mess.
And I threw the money at them and I walked out and told them, don't ever talk to me again, I'm done with this place.
Eventually, Amy's Baking Company closed its doors, and honestly, it was probably for the best. They could not handle the heat, and the spotlight was way too much for them. They packed up and moved to California, where Amy focused on baking and even dabbled in some cannabis edibles. But just when it seemed like they'd left the drama behind, Sammy got deported back to Israel in 2018. Amy then followed him and they tried to lay low for a little while. But old habits die hard, and they still couldn't resist poking the trolls on social media.
I want you to just shut up.
Nowadays, Amy's baking up a storm in Israel and her Instagram is blowing up. People seem to have moved on, but if you ask me, Amy's Baking Company will always be the craziest chapter in Kitchen Nightmares history.
Rats, nasty online messages.
Freaking crazy.
This is what you don't ever do.
You see, they may be out of the bakery game, but they've left a lasting legacy of chaos and craziness. Cheers to them, I guess. But here comes another owner who is pretty much on the same level of delusion as Amy.
My mother's been teaching me since I could walk. That's my formal training. My ability is endless. Put it in front of me and I'll make the dish for you.
Alright guys, say hello to Sebastian DeModica. Picture this, Chef Ramsay walks in, tries the food, and promptly spits it out. Like, seriously disgusting. And then he goes on a rampage telling Sebastian everything that's wrong with his place. And let me tell you, there was a laundry list of problems.
This is filthy. This is ridiculous.
When he's get upset, you might see pans flying across the kitchen.
Sebastian's joint, located in Burbank, California, was supposed to be in a prime spot, but it was tanking. The menu was straight up bonkers, with like 20 different combos that made 0 sense. And the food, let's just say that even dog food might have tasted better.
He told me they're fresh. And they're not fresh, they're frozen.
But Sebastian, bless his heart, couldn't handle the truth.
I'd say 90% of the time we are losing money.
Fast forward to the big relaunch, and surprise, surprise, Sebastian was already backsliding.
I was kind of upset at Chef Gordon at that point. I felt like he was being a little unreasonable.
In the end, Chef Ramsay basically predicted that the restaurant was doomed to fail. And guess what? He was right. The place shut down in 2009, and Sebastian hightailed it to Boston with his tail between his legs.
It's not easy to accept.
But wait, there's more. Sebastian tried his hand at acting, starring in a movie called Angels Around Me. Spoiler alert, it sucked. Like, really sucked. Think gangsters, crime, and terrible rap music. And get this, after his restaurant nightmare and cinematic disaster, Sebastian vanished into obscurity. But surprise, surprise, he resurfaced as the proud owner of a tree removal company. Talk about a career change. But hey, at least he's found success in chopping down trees, right? Instead of cooking frozen pizzas. But what happened with this next chef was straight up embarrassing. In the 15th episode of Season 6, Chef Ramsay traveled to Nashville, Tennessee to visit a Cajun restaurant called Chappie's. The eatery was owned by the head chef John Chappie Chapman and his wife Star. But this wasn't their first establishment. Chappie's was originally set up in Long Beach, Mississippi. But after Hurricane Katrina devastated the entire region, Chappie's had to be relocated. In order to start all over again, a nationwide search to look for the ideal location ensued. Eventually, in 2005, the new Cajun restaurant was opened in Nashville. But was Nashville the right place to serve Cajun cuisine? Well, I think that if you have the right flavors and good service, there's nothing stopping you from having a successful business. But soon, Chappie began to have his doubts. According to him, the reason why the restaurant wasn't doing so well was because of the locals. Apparently, Chappie believes that the locals can understand Cajun cuisine like he can.
Oh well, these people don't know.
But wait, didn't the owners study the local market before actually moving their entire setup? I'm not sure what kind of groundwork they did before pitching the tent, but when I looked, I found that Nashvillians actually enjoy Cajun food. Although hot chicken sandwiches and fiery fried chicken top the list, the locals are open to try some gumbo and jambalaya. So this can only mean one thing. Chappie just wasn't good at making excuses. I mean, he could have at least come up with something more believable. But since he didn't want to take any responsibility, he simply thought it would be easier to blame the locals. Now, this is what gets to me. Chappie's did have customers, which clearly shows that the locals who came were curious to try the cuisine. But there was something off about every dish. The customers kept returning the food with multiple complaints, but there was one main problem.
Chappie is extremely hard-headed.
There's nothing wrong with my food.
And with the sudden drop in footfalls, Chappie's interest in the business soon took a backseat. The entire staff at the restaurant firmly believed that Chappie wasn't only an awful boss, but had a major ego problem.
Everybody thinks they know better, so it's my job to make sure it stays the way it's supposed to be.
His own wife, Star, believed that Chappie desperately needed to change his attitude for the sake of the restaurant. If he didn't, they wouldn't have the slightest chance at success. Star was aware that they had to evolve for their business to survive, but she didn't know how to explain this to her know-it-all husband. With no ideas in mind, she called out to Chef Ramsay for some help. Chef Ramsay had no idea what he was getting himself into, but I think he got a fair idea once he was greeted by a ghastly figure. Whoa, what the hell? What in the world was that? And why was it even here? If there's any vibe this mannequin gave off, then it has to be spooky. Chef Ramsay then asked the receptionist to inform Chappie of his arrival. As he waited for him, he found many more horrendous things that were used as decor. Wow, just look at this. What exactly is this? Oh, and look, here's the man himself. Well, from whatever Chef Ramsay had seen so far, he understood that this was going to be pretty difficult. Meanwhile, Chappie informed the receptionist that he was on his way to meet with Chef Ramsay, but that's not what it looks like, right? Chappie was taking his sweet time. It looked like he didn't even want Chef Ramsay in his restaurant. Several minutes later, Chappie was still in the kitchen, but was he busy? Absolutely not. He was just wasting time trying to stall his meeting with Chef Ramsay. Finally, he was ready to meet with Chef Ramsay, who was growing restless from the long wait time. But before he left, he said one of the most absurd things I've ever heard. While we all recognize Chef Ramsay as a culinary genius, Chappie referred to him as Darth Vader. Now that speaks volumes about what Chappie thought about Chef Ramsay's presence. Anyway, when Chef Ramsay got down to understanding more about the business, he realized that the theme didn't match with the decor. And the food didn't match with the decor either. Just like Chappie's attire. Wow, have you ever seen a head chef like this before? Anyway, Chappie said that the restaurant was a place of casual dining, but the folded napkins and waiters with bow ties were anything but casual. So obviously, like I said earlier, just about everything in the restaurant was a total mismatch, but Chef Ramsay was more concerned about the food. When he asked Chappie about how much he would rate his food, Chappie confidently said that his food was a 10 out of 10 every time he made it.
My food is the best New Orleans cuisine in Nashville, hands down, so I can't figure out why people haven't come and enjoy.
Chef Ramsay was taken aback by his confidence, or should I say his overconfidence. Chef Ramsay then seated himself at a table and flipped through the menu. It had 15 additional specials that weren't listed in it. Now that's a huge menu to have. But what TJ, the server, said next will make you question Chappie's management skills. Apparently, the items on the lunch and dinner menus were pretty much identical, but the cost increased 3 times from lunch to dinner. But why? That's something even Chef Ramsay couldn't figure out. With a lot of apprehension, Chef Ramsay then proceeded to place his order, and he went for fried green tomatoes, a chicken and sausage gumbo, and a steak and lobster rocket. While he waited for his food to arrive, he decided to strike up a conversation with Star, Chappie's wife. Star, who worked at the front desk, revealed more about Chappie's personality to Chef Ramsay. She said that he was stubborn and didn't welcome her input on trimming the menu down. He was so hard-headed in his own ways that he couldn't see how his behavior was ruining their restaurant. From whatever Chef Ramsay had heard so far, it was clear that Chappie didn't make a good boss, but how was he as a chef? Sadly, he was just as bad. Chef Ramsay found the very first dish he received to be extremely bland. He was actually surprised by the ingredients used. But was the second dish any better? Chef Ramsay had the most insane way of describing this dish. He said,
"It looks like Chappie took a crappie in my gumbo."
Yikes, not something you want to hear about your food. But the third dish left Chef Ramsay shell-shocked. He couldn't believe how bad it was, so he made TJ try it. And TJ's reaction is so worth seeing.
As I was trying to bite down on it, it was bouncing back.
For the horrendous food he had just served, Chappie had many excuses to make, and his reaction was truly astonishing.
Ramsay's a dumbass. You know, if there's something that I think is absolutely wrong, he doesn't know what he's talking about, I'm gonna tell him. You don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Chef Ramsay then met with the kitchen staff to understand what really went wrong with the food. I mean, how could it be that bad? Right from the service to the quality of the food, just about everything was disappointing. Chappie persisted to argue that there was seasoning in his dishes, and Chef Ramsay couldn't believe the audacity he had to talk back to him. But the worst part was that the food wasn't even hot. If they charge over $30 for an entree, the least they could do is serve good food, right? But Chappie wasn't buying any of Chef Ramsay's feedback. When he understood that there was no escape, he started to make excuses. That never stopped. There was a lot to fix at this restaurant. Before getting on to anything else, Chef Ramsay had to first start with the owners. And so Chef Ramsay pulled Chappie and Star aside for a private chat. It was then that Chef Ramsay put the most crucial question forward, whether Chappie wanted to stay in business or if he was done for good. And for the first time ever, Star, who was normally calm, exploded with her concerns. It was now time to voice her side. So after the dramatic conversation with the owners, Chef Ramsay observed the dinner service. But even before the service began, he took note of each and every staff member's role in the kitchen. And while he was still doing that, he found an issue with how Chappie was storing the oysters for the night. Oysters need to be kept cold to retain their freshness, but this batch looked like it had already gone stale from being left in the open. But Chappie had to prove his point that they were fresh. And so to prove Chef Ramsay wrong, he got his thermometer to check the temperature of the oysters. However, Chef Ramsay caught him red-handed. Chappie was willing to go to any extent to cover his lies. But Chef Ramsay turned out to be smarter than he thought.
I'm not that dumb now, just put ice in there to check the temperature. Throw some ice and I'll check it. I want to look good.
What Chef Ramsay found next could have landed Chappie and his restaurant in some legal trouble. Chef Ramsay found out that they cooked their steak and fish in the same pan. For those of you who think this is okay, here's a quick little lesson for you. Have you ever heard of pescatarianism?
Pescatarian?
I know, what the hell is that? Well, it was the first time Chappie ever heard of something like that. He even admitted that he had never heard the word before. And for those of you who also don't know, hear it from Chef Ramsay himself.
Yeah, they only eat fish, and they don't expect to eat their fish with meat juices.
I've never heard of one.
While Chef Ramsay tried to educate Chappie about it, the head chef/owner didn't pay any attention to it. Things, however, got even more intense as Chef Ramsay brought in a pescatarian. What are the odds, right? Chef Ramsay found someone right there to prove his point. But the poor lady was extremely disturbed after seeing what goes on behind the scenes. She started to get worried because meat made her sick. But Chef Ramsay reassured her that she would be served fresh fish, which was fried in a separate pan. Chappie was completely livid with what Chef Ramsay had done. So much so that his face went red. With so much disorganization in the kitchen, Chef Ramsay started to worry about what he would find in the pantry. And just as he expected, he found a bottle of mustard sauce that didn't look right. Oh wait, that was actually mayonnaise that had gone bad. How long was it there to have that color? That's when he checked the label and was shocked with what he found. The contents expired 3 whole years ago. And here it was, lying in the midst of all the other food which was about to be served to the customers. Now that's a major health hazard. But that wasn't the end of it. He found more rotting food and empty trays that had never been cleaned. At this point, Chef Ramsay was confused how this place was even still running. And just when you thought you've seen it all, there was more. More mold, more rotten food, and more stale meat. Chef Ramsay was so disappointed at the state of the fridge. It was the filthiest he's ever seen, so he called on the owners and said this.
I have never seen that, ever. And I want to know, what the hell are you doing?
After that, Chef Ramsay continued to pull out tray after tray of cooked food, decaying food, a cake that dated to God knows which era, and lots more. Star was just as shocked as Chef Ramsay, and she was clearly at a loss for words. But Chappie continued to act innocent like he didn't know what was going on. Sadly for him, Chef Ramsay wasn't buying his BS. When Star finally spoke up, she tried to defend her husband, but Chef Ramsay was done. He said this.
You've taught every chef in the world how not to cook. Congratulations.
Later on, Star confessed that she was mortified, embarrassed, and deeply upset with how Chappie neglected his duties. Well, I'm glad someone finally came to their senses. Chef Ramsay then explained to Star that he had seen all the signs indicating that Chappie had already given up. But Star was determined to change things. That night, the staff was forced to clean the entire pantry out. The next morning, Chef Ramsay gathered the staff for a meeting. He said that he was invited over to help the restaurant, but now his main concern was no longer the business, but Chappie himself. One of the employees said that if he asked Chappie a question and pissed him off, that was the end of it. Another voiced that Chappie would yell so loud that the customers could hear it. They claimed that Chappie was far more composed around Chef Ramsay, and they genuinely wanted it to stick. But it was important that they shared what they felt with Chappie directly. And one employee decided to keep it short and sweet and said this.
You're condescending, you're rude, and you're abusive.
But since Chappie still wasn't convinced, Chef Ramsay then invited a few locals to express their views. And much to the owner's surprise, the locals either had never heard of the eatery or never ate at it. And if they did, they didn't like it. The locals had many complaints and claimed that the dishes weren't truly Cajun cuisine. Some even mentioned that the food tasted burnt most of the time, which is completely unappetizing. And to top it all off, the meals were pricey, the quality was poor, and the restaurant had a negative ambiance.
Have you been to Chappie's?
I have been. I didn't feel as real authentic Cajun.
The owners were taken aback by everything they just heard. Meanwhile, Chef Ramsay's team transformed the dining room in just one night. And in order to create a calm atmosphere, the walls were brightened and the room was decluttered. While Star couldn't speak, everyone else was pleased with the renovations, but Chappie didn't look very content. And this is what the ungrateful owner had to say.
Kind of grin, bear it, move on.
At the time of the relaunch, Chris the chef was rushing things along, but Chappie was failing to communicate and was having trouble with the new menu. While customers waited, Chef Ramsay was burdened with the task of encouraging and motivating Chappie. After Chappie butterflied the meat by hammering it down to serve it more quickly, Chef Ramsay asked Chris to take over as the head chef. Eventually, the relaunch went well, but someone wasn't happy. Before he left, Chef Ramsay asked the owners to hire a new head chef who was efficient enough to run the kitchen. This was more so because Chef Ramsay believed that Chappie shouldn't be permitted to manage the kitchen on his own. Despite the compliments on the adjustments received in the weeks that followed, Chappie reverted to his previous behavior. His old menu, chef's cap, and bad temper, all of it came right back. But do you know what else will keep coming back? My amazing videos. So be sure to drop a massive like down below and subscribe to my channel if you want more. With that out of the way, let's check out what Chappie felt like. The man didn't even keep his discontentment to himself. Ever since Chef Ramsay's departure, he gave numerous high-profile interviews insisting that Chef Ramsay had destroyed his restaurant. Chappie changed the menu back to the original one only 4 weeks after the show was taped. According to him, the new menu drove away his devoted customers. But wait, let's not forget that he hardly had any customers in the first place, and that's exactly why Chef Ramsay was asked to come. Anyway, Chappie went on to re-modify the interior to the original drab and gaudy look. And only a month after the episode aired, the restaurant ran into some trouble. In 2012, a non-profit DCI bought the building at an auction after Chappie was unable to refinance his $1.4 million loan on the property. However, Chappie continued to operate as a tenant of the building. But in 2013, Chappie's finally closed down. According to the reports, the state seized the restaurant for unpaid taxes. It's believed that Chappie then returned to the Gulf Coast where he had previously owned the Chappie's Bistro inside a Gulfport, Mississippi hotel. The last we've heard from Chappie is that he runs a restaurant that goes by the name Rum Kitchen in Waveland, Mississippi. And the reviews are surprisingly positive. So this is how things went down at Chappie's restaurant. While that was bad, it's nothing compared to this chef who sucked at being a manager. Nestled in Silsden, Yorkshire, Bonaparte's yearned for brighter days in its quaint town.
It's frustrating the hell out of it at the moment because I'm going nowhere.
Sue Ray poured her heart into her restaurant, but despite her efforts, it struggled for various reasons, not least of which being herself. But, of course, she was oblivious to her role in the failure of the business until Chef Ramsay actually stepped in to bail her out.
So how's it going?
A bit quieter today.
How many did you have in for lunch?
About 2.
Empty tables during service time are the worst possible nightmare for any restaurant owner. And sadly for Sue, things had been dire for the last few months. But really, all you'd have to do is look towards the kitchen to figure out what was wrong with the place. Turns out, Sue had placed her trust on 21-year-old Tim, thinking he could make things work only because he had passion. But passion is no substitute for skill.
Obviously, I would like a couple of restaurants, maybe 3.
Now, Chef Ramsay was itching to observe a proper service to see what the chef was made of. But he was going to be hard-pressed to do that with no customers showing up in the first place. Now, leave it to Chef Ramsay to come up with a plan in an instant. He had the chefs hit the streets themselves to drum up some business. If that doesn't scream tough times, I don't know what does. Finally, the restaurant was buzzing, and it was time for Chef Ramsay to finally see what they were made of. Well, let me tell you, not much.
Tim, you made a rub earlier?
Yes.
It's burnt.
As for Tim, when Chef Ramsay asked him to make his signature dish, guess what he came up with?
Scallops with deep-fried parma and black pudding sauce hollandaise.
The famous chef was shocked.
It's gotta be sick.
Badly cooked scallops? Sure. Burnt or overcooked scallops? An honest mistake. But rancid scallops? That is where I draw the line. When the famous chef confronted Tim, guess what he had to say?
I didn't know they were off.
They're fucking minging.
You didn't know? You're the head chef, man. What do you mean you didn't know? Hell, even someone who can't cook would turn their nose up at the smell and immediately throw them out, right? But let's talk about the kitchen itself. One glance and you'd never want to eat there ever again.
Yeah, it looks like sheep's turd that's been infested with ants.
That's not all. Wait till you see this.
We've got fucking fur on fucking potatoes.
Fur on potato? That's gotta be a new one. Still won't catch me dead ordering it though. So, yeah, the kitchen was a mess.
Disgustingly filthy. In allowing things to fester, Tim's putting Sue's business at risk.
No wonder there were few customers. But maybe that was for the best. Ramsay couldn't help himself but give an earful to the chefs.
Fucking close the place for me, you know that? Because this is the fucking pits. You should be ashamed.
Well deserved, honestly. Thanks to Tim, the kitchen was a hygiene disaster, and Sue? Well, she had no clue that any of this was happening. How could she? Tim and Sue barely even talked to each other. But the famous chef decided to get them talking.
We need to keep the place clean and everything tidy, otherwise I can be sued, in which case I'm out of business.
Well, that's a start. But I don't think that Tim was too happy with the little chat that they had.
You just have to stick her orange. She wasn't gonna say I told you so, but that's what she was doing.
Turns out these guys didn't really see eye to eye.
Fair enough, she had the little dig, so what? Fuck her, you know what I mean?
However, the famous chef was dead set on bringing some positive change to their doorstep. While the crew tackled the floors, Chef Ramsay swung by Sue's place to chat about what needed fixing. And let me tell you, what she dropped was nothing short of jaw-dropping.
I say flippantly, I'll end up going bankrupt if you're not careful, but didn't realise how true that is.
It's so sad that this woman poured her heart into the restaurant but still couldn't turn a profit. With just 3 months to turn things around, Chef Ramsay needed to do a few key things, like for one, setting Tim straight.
You're fucking cocky with her, you know that? Yeah. And she pays your fucking salary.
And no, he did not stop there.
So now it's time to give back.
Absolutely, definitely.
And not cooking for egos, get rid of it.
But first, it was time for a few cooking lessons, and who better than Chef Ramsay to teach a few culinary tricks?
Make love to it, don't fuck it.
Ramsay was determined to turn Tim into a decent chef, willing to do whatever it took.
T-bone steak, or is it a rump steak?
Once the culinary training was over and done with, at least to some extent, they began the revamp of the whole place.
Yes, I like it.
I hardly dare say it, but this place has got a real buzz about it.
Now, considering all the progress they made, can you take a wild guess how the revamp went?
It was excellent. Yeah, very enjoyable.
It's what we expected to have, really.
Yeah, the customers were blown away by the food. But how did Sue pay back Chef Ramsay for all that hard work he put himself through? She decided to sue him. Wait, what? Well, looks like Bonaparte just couldn't catch a break. They tried rebranding, but it didn't work out. As for Sue, she went bankrupt, homeless, and then turned to government benefits to even survive. Poor Tim had his troubles too, including a DUI in 2007 and no more cooking gigs in his future. And then, of course, there was the legal mess with Chef Ramsay, but guess what? The production house ended up paying £75 in damages in 2006. But what happened with this next restaurant wasn't nearly as bad as what happened at Bonaparte's, but, well, it still wasn't good. So I'm talking about Anna Vincenzo's in Boca Raton, Florida. It's owned by Cece Vincenzo, who opened the place with the help of her father, a former pizzeria owner. Cece's dad, Angelo, loaned her more than $300,000 that he made from his thriving restaurant gig. He'd been hustling in the restaurant scene long before Cece came along, and she practically grew up in the kitchen.
Always been around the kitchen since I was a baby.
You'd expect someone from a family with a restaurant background to know the ropes, right? But you'd be forgiven for making that assumption.
When she gets mad, she's aggressive.
The restaurant was doing good at first, but declined soon enough, and the culprit was clearly Cece.
Tell everybody to fucking go home. I'm shutting the place down.
Yeah, Cece has to be hurting Ellis.
And to top it all off, take a look at this.
Right now, I'm in debt about $190,000 to my father.
Well, only Chef Ramsay could save it. Thankfully, that's exactly what he intended to do.
Wow.
As soon as he walked through the doors, Cece greeted him eagerly. But when it was time for the tasting, Chef Ramsay wasn't about to settle for one dish. He never does he?
I'll take one of everything.
One of everything? Yeah. One of everything.
But guess what? The menu was anything but ordinary.
2, 3, oh my God. It's that big? How many dishes are on there?
Now, Chef Ramsay took the time that he needed to skim through the menu, and what did he order? Well, all in good time. First up was the salmon.
Salmon is dry.
Frozen. And when Chef Ramsay flagged someone over, he wasn't surprised by the response at all.
She said the salmon comes in fresh and then they freeze it.
It's like eating a piece of cardboard.
As for the snapper,
oh my God, that just tasted mush.
Same story, different fish. The famous chef even called Cece's husband to the front to give it a taste, but, well, Cece wasn't having it.
Tell him that I said there's starving people in the world, and if I have to keep making food to go in the garbage, I don't want to make anymore.
Although Ramsay stood his ground and criticized the dishes, Cece decided to blow things out of proportion.
So he is a bigger asshole than I thought.
Fuck him.
What?
Fuck him.
Just imagine calling Chef Ramsay an asshole after you decide to help you out. What was this woman thinking, man? Especially after serving him dishes like this.
Soggy in the middle and crispy on the outside. It's dreadful. What a shame.
After that disappointing lunch, Chef Ramsay gave Cece his feedback on the dishes, but she decided to get defensive.
Decoration with a cucumber.
Everybody loves that salad.
Who's everybody? The restaurant's empty.
Cece's inability to handle criticism was beyond the pale. It even got to the point where Chef Ramsay legit left because of her attitude problem.
What a sad case.
Anyway, he did come back eventually. But when it was time for him to inspect the kitchen, you won't believe what he discovered.
What are these little babies
Meatballs, they're a little, overcooked.
Why am I not surprised? Now, it wasn't just Chef Ramsay, none of the customers liked how Cece ran the place.
Meal has no flavor at all.
I'm sorry about that, and I'll be back to get those plates, okay?
But guess what? With criticism pouring from all sides, Cece lost it. Not only did she abandon her duties as a chef, but also asked Michael, her husband, to kick all the customers out. Yeah, that'll definitely have them coming back for more, right? But seriously, Cece was clearly having a mental breakdown.
That you have to come to terms internally that there's a huge problem, and that is with the food.
But for real, you can't help those who can't help themselves. And Cece was the poster child of that concept. I mean, Cece was something else, man. She even decided to screw up the relaunch.
If something's ready, don't wait. Just send it out.
Did that look good to you?
It doesn't matter.
But the famous chef wasn't having it.
I'd rather go to the table and tell them we burnt it than stand there sending them shit.
Anyway, as usual, the relaunch kind of ended off on a good note. Well, all thanks to Chef Ramsay's timely intervention, of course. But when Chef Ramsay came for a revisit, Anna Vincenzo's was closed. And the crowd goes wild. Ashton revealed that Cece reverted to her old habits, raising prices and shrinking portions. Although Cece blamed her family woes for her downfall, I guess we all know who was responsible here, don't we? Anyway, this was far from the only family drama that Kitchen Nightmares has ever seen. I mean, this next owner literally stole his son's inheritance. What could be worse?
Good evening, welcome to Burger Kitchen.
So, this is the story of Alan and his wife Jen, who kicked off Burger Kitchen back in 2010. Ooh, that rhymed. Now, you see, Helen's love for burgers got the ball rolling early on. However, there's a dark truth behind the restaurant's opening.
I took the money from my son Daniel.
Imagine taking your son's money without even asking for it first? Dad privilege? I don't think so, more like daylight robbery. As for the burgers that Alan was so proud of, well, they were far below subpar.
Buy your patties pre-made, and you know it's not good, but you continually say it is because you don't have any taste buds.
And it wasn't just the head chef David's opinion. The customers agreed too.
I better let you eat.
Yes, please.
I'll leave you to it.
And with the whole family working together, you best believe that the kitchen was beyond chaotic.
Is he doing a natural for 44?
Yes, he is doing a natural for 44.
Daniel's frustration, however, was really justified. He received absolutely no respect at all, let alone in the kitchen.
My father, he does not treat me as an equal partner. He still treats me like a child. It's very infuriating.
Although Alan and Jen tried to deceive Chef Ramsay, Marilyn was wise enough to come clean.
Lack of management. And the burgers, they're never cooked right. They're always sent back.
And true to her words, the food was a shame.
I asked for mid-rare, it's raw.
Talk about a disaster. As for the next one, well, it was even worse.
Wow.
But just you wait till you see the much acclaimed Cowboy Burger. Chef Ramsay didn't even know where to start.
Look at that.
And when he finally did take a bite, he regretted it big time.
It's so bland. Greasy, cooked to hell.
When Ramsay pinned the blame on Chef David, the poor chef decided to spill the truth.
I follow the recipes as I am told by the owners.
But what he said next was shocking.
If I try to change the recipes, I am tossed out of here.
What?
That's right. There was a reason why the burgers kept turning out so poorly.
The way you're manipulating and the way I had to buy groceries this morning, where's my money for my groceries?
The staff weren't even paid well. That is how bad the situation was. But Ramsay wasn't about to take Chef David's words at face value without putting him through a test. Was he really able to put his money where his mouth was? Well...
Bloody hell, I mean, that's what I call a burger. Jesus.
As for the taste, Chef Ramsay couldn't believe it.
It's delicious. Thank you, chef. The temperature's perfect, and the roll is crispy.
Meanwhile, Jen tried to deliberately nitpick at things to try and downplay the situation.
That was a different issue. That's got
What is
nothing
the
to do.
issue?
Because
to watch me fail.
The famous chef, however, knew better than to believe it. Now that he knew Chef David had what it took to steer the ship, Chef Ramsay decided to inspect the kitchen. And believe me, he almost wished that he didn't.
No, sorry. I don't need you second guessing me, Austin. I'm not.
The kitchen was a chaotic mess with Daniel and David constantly fighting over orders.
It says 42. There's two people. Table 2 is not gonna have 42 fucking guests.
Things had gotten so bad that Daniel had even kicked David out of the kitchen. Not kicked, I think they fired him. But the dude wasn't gonna leave this place until he got his money.
And David, for the record, I'm not on Prozac, dear.
I'm for the record, you should be.
The famous chef immediately called for a meeting to address some serious issues that could be prevented.
And it's so sad to see a family ripped apart.
Well, thankfully, Chef Ramsay's efforts paid off and the owners made peace with their staff. Now, fast forward to the relaunch and things were finally falling into place.
This is so good.
These things are phenomenal.
Except for Alan.
Someone said you were still hungry.
I got dessert coming, don't worry about it.
Anyway, by hook or by crook, the service eventually came to an end. But the famous chef had an important announcement to make.
Daniel has proven to me he has the capabilities of running this place.
But wait, he wasn't done yet. Listen to this.
Let him do it. With all due respect, this is Daniel's restaurant to run.
And that was Alan and Jen's cue to back off from their responsibilities at the restaurant. Despite that, after Chef Ramsay left, Burger Kitchen went through a whirlwind of changes. A bunch of new owners took over in August of 2011, and by October, there was a fresh new look, new menu, and a revamped team. Despite the effort that was being put into the place though, customers weren't impressed. And well, the original burgers vanished for good. Quite expectedly, the place closed its doors back in February of 2012, leaving behind nothing but a for lease sign. Well, tough break for the burger joint. But if I had to give you a perfect example of delusion at its finest, then Blackberry's is the only one that I could give you in good faith. Owned by a once successful caterer named Shelley Winter, the dynamic woman ran the place with the help of her mother. Well, barely. In truth, the restaurant was tanking big time, and here's the reason behind it.
The macaroni actually...
If poor food wasn't reason enough, it was Shelley's delusions that made things worse.
Shelley believes that all of her food is better than any chef out there.
And the only person capable of helping her was none other than Chef Ramsay himself. Soon enough, he was walking through the doors, and guess how he reacted?
Have you here?
Wow, look at this place. Somebody having a party?
Yeah, not surprising why he asked that. In fact, even while he was waiting for his order, a certain something caught his attention.
This is the craziest decor I've ever seen. Wow, another record.
And no, the records weren't just simply hanging there. Check this out.
Look at these, oh, Jesus.
Ah, who knew, right? Anyway, Chef Ramsay's order finally made its way to his table, and you have to see how it turned out.
Just like someone shat on my plate.
As for the pasta, well...
That's bland. Nothing's seasoned there.
Oh man! And guess what? It only got worse from then on.
Wow. That's bland. No seasoning. It's just fried and soggy and limp.
Then came the final dish, and Chef Ramsay needed some prayers.
In Jesus' name, you are blessed. We rebuke the spirit of the devil.
So, what was his final verdict, you ask?
Ugh. Chitlets. Shitlets.
You best believe that he ran to the bathroom after eating that.
I need the toilet, excuse me. I knew they'd come out quicker than they went in.
But hey, at least there was one saving grace. Not every restaurant that's been on the show can claim to have one.
Wow, that is delicious. Finally, some good fucking food.
Except for the desserts, everything else was downright appalling. So he decided to crash the kitchen and confront those responsible.
Pork chop, dry, bland, no seasoning, and the macaroni and cheese was an embarrassment.
But of course, Shelley was just delusional. She couldn't believe that her food was the problem. Well, okay, let's take her word on that. But how do you explain this?
Ooh, what is that?
A dead rat at the entrance? Yeah, that'd be my cue to leave. But the owners decided to lay the blame on, I don't know, Chef Ramsay?
Perhaps. You planted that, mouse.
I mean, why would he do that? Ramsay was not gonna take that lying down, not now, not ever.
You can take your restaurant and stick it. I'm gone. I'm out of it.
But the person who was actually facing the brunt of it all was Shelley's mother.
Please shut up. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
It was only because of that poor old lady that Chef Ramsay decided to stick around. But what he found was nothing out of the usual.
Cooking green beans in a wok, cooking rice in a wok, cabbage in a wok. We're not a Chinese soul food restaurant.
To make things worse, when Chef Ramsay gathered everyone together for a group meeting, guess where all the fingers were being pointed?
But is it overbearing? Is it too controlling?
Yes. Either her way or the highway.
Shelley, of course. And believe me, it was about time that you heard some hard-hitting facts.
Shelley needs to learn how to delegate responsibility. She can't be hands-on all the time.
Even her own mother chimed in with her disappointment.
Shelley have to learn how to listen. Everybody tries to communicate with her and support her.
Anyway, after a little pep talk and a lot of encouragement, Shelley finally decided to play by Chef Ramsay's rules. But guess what? She messed up the relaunch too.
Things were going really well at the beginning because they were being executed, but then I just don't think Shelley wanted to be there.
It was only after Shelley left the kitchen that things finally fell into place. Either way, when Chef Ramsay left, Shelley just snuck back into the kitchen, and the rest is history, as they say. I mean, the restaurant was history. Blackberries met its end in 2013, and if you go by the Yelp reviews, it was for the best. From constant fights in the kitchen to poor food and service, the restaurant was finally shuttered after 10 long years in business. So, if you had to pick one owner who messed up the most spectacularly in the show's history, who would you pick? Make sure to share your thoughts in the comment section down below. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to visit my social media pages, drop a like, subscribe, and turn on my post notifications if you haven't already. And if you thought this video was crazy, wait till you see my next video right here, since it's even better.